Hi, Art Seekers. We have an extremely special guest today. We are here with Hueman, someone I've been wanting to meet forever, so I'm super excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
How did you start to see the street as your canvas?
As a kid growing up, I used to sketch like block letters and stuff, and so I still have like old sketches from when I was like 8 or 9, just trying to tag my name out. It's really funny, yeah.
You were 9 when you did? That's amazing.
Yeah, I just like my older brother was really into hip hop, and so I grew up around that, and yeah, so graffiti was always something that drew me in. For the graffiti art culture, a huge part of it is this rebellion and you know, just like giving it to the man, you know, and you know, and that's something I understand, but it's not something that has attracted me to graffiti. I've always been attracted to it just for like the whole typography, the texture, the colors, and so when I create street art, it's more for the scale of it and being able to create artwork in a public space and having, you know, people in the public see that versus like getting a thrill out of, you know, creating a piece like in the middle of the night.
Do you ever do anything illegal?
Why would I answer that on camera?
So you don't have to, do you actually? What's the message that you hope people will take away from your work?
I feel like I have two sides to myself. There's a very like soft, very feminine side, and there's the really assertive and aggressive side of me, and that goes after what I want, and you know, and but yet I can also be vulnerable. I like to find that balance, so that's why like recently in the last year or so, like the faces I do almost look more androgynous, because even then it's like it like straddles this line between like feminine and masculine, and then there's the hard and the soft, and it's always just about finding a balance. And I don't know, I almost feel like a scientist where you're just adding and subtracting things until you know until there's a chemistry. When I'm working on the canvas and I'm like mixing things around and using like rubbing alcohol and creating like these crazy little like splotches and watching how the paint runs together, and adding paint in certain places where, I don't know, like sometimes it's just an intuitive thing, like, oh, this space is wide open, it needs something there. And I feel like not everything I do has to have a meaning, but it's just a literal balance.
Of all of your works in LA, is there one that's really significant to you or really personal?
Everything's a little bit personal to me. I always like to get emotion across in my work. At the same time, once I'm done with something, I kind of just remove myself and just leave it out in the world.
When I read how you're positioned in magazine articles and reviews, sometimes it really irritates me that people they're celebrating you rightly for painting on such a large scale,
right,
and for being so assertive and for being so successful, but then in the same sentence they're like, oh, and she's such a small person, isn't that amazing? And I don't like that there's so much conversation about your body. You would never say about a male street artist, he paints so small and yet he's so huge.
I know. That pisses me off. I hate it. But I had a whole page in this magazine. First off, they used all these pictures of like my old work. Even though I had like, it came out at the time of my solo show. I was like, I sent you all these new pictures. Anyway, but then the article itself was about my changing hair colors and the outfit I wore and the stilettos I wore to my opening. And I'm like, oh, but can you believe it? She wears hoodies out when she paints a wall, and it's like, well, what else am I gonna wear? I'm not gonna wear stilettos on a lift.
But that is
you know?
so not the point.
Right. I mean, if a guy street artist has an art show, he's gonna clean it up a little bit. Some of them would, you know. They would put on a blazer, they would shave.
A nicer pair of tennis shoes.
A nicer pair of tennis shoes, maybe, you know, and no one says anything about that.
So what do you do about that? Because on the one hand, you want the exposure, but on the other hand, the system is just so upsetting that you want to subvert it.
I feel like the more women that pop up on the scene, the less we're going to see of that, you know? Because I think it's because, like, female straight artists are still, like, not represented. Or, I mean, there's just not many of us out there. But, I mean, there are more and more that are coming out on the scene. And, yeah, I just feel like the more normal it is for females to be painting on the street, the less people are going to need to talk about that. But I feel like that's just what happens as a woman, no matter what industry you're in. Like, you know, the Oscars, like, people were talking about why do we always have to talk about what we're wearing? Or they have the Manny Cam, where you walk your nails across the little red carpet. It's so annoying.
Or Hillary Clinton, even in politics, talking about cankles. You would never discuss Obama's body. Like, it's
right. It's just something that women deal with in general, and so that's why, even though I get that in interviews and stuff, I'm also not surprised. I've also gotten people that have seen my work on the street and then find out later that I'm female. And they're just like, wow, I thought you were a guy, because human, but it's like, well, human. I'm a human, you know, you're a human. But I feel like when people can, you know, become attached to a piece of yours on the street, that's all that matters. And the social media, the interviews, and all that stuff, that's all secondary. You know, it all comes down to the work you create.